Welcome to your review of special considerations in sports and performance nutrition.
Oh, yeah. This is going to be a good one.
Right. This is exciting stuff. It's
Yeah.
not just the usual, what should athletes eat for fuel and performance stuff.
Right.
We're diving deeper
Deeper.
into specific needs of different kinds of athletes,
Yeah, we're looking at athletes who need, more than the usual tweaks to their diet.
like fine-tuning. Right.
Tuning.
It's kind of like understanding how to fuel different kinds of high-performance engines. They all need fuel.
Yes.
But they need very specific blends
Mhm.
to really perform their best.
That's a great analogy. And speaking of blends, we've got a whole range of information here from different sources,
Yeah.
really highlighting these unique needs of athletes and how different factors can really change what they need.
Right.
Think about it, even things like health conditions
Yeah.
or stages of life
Oh, huge.
totally changes the game.
Yeah. And the groups that we're going to explore with you all today are athletes with diabetes, pregnant athletes,
Yeah.
child and teen athletes,
Oh my gosh, yes.
collegiate athletes, master's level athletes, and even vegetarian athletes.
Say fascinating.
So our goal is to kind of unpack what makes their needs different
Give you a solid overview.
and offer some practical insights for each one.
I think people are going to find this one really, really interesting.
Me too.
All right, let's dive right in.
So we'll kick things off with athletes with diabetes. I
Yeah.
think most of us have heard of diabetes,
Right.
but what is it exactly?
Okay, so diabetes, it's pretty widespread.
Yeah.
It affects something like 30 million people in the U.S. alone.
Wow.
And at its core, it's a metabolic disorder.
Okay.
It messes with how your body processes carbs,
Carbs, yeah.
leading to, high blood glucose levels, which is called hyperglycemia.
Okay.
And that's a big deal for athletes because over time, that can really increase the risk of, complications. Right.
With their heart, kidneys, and even their nerves.
Yeah, so it's not just like a performance thing.
Right.
It can be a long-term health issue.
Absolutely.
So what's the root cause?
Okay, so the main culprit here is a hormone called insulin.
Okay.
And with diabetes, either your body's not producing enough insulin or the cells in your body just aren't responding to it properly.
Okay.
Think of insulin as the key.
Okay.
That unlocks the cells to let glucose in.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
Glucose being the fuel.
Exactly. Our body's main source of energy.
Yeah.
So if you don't have enough keys or the locks are broken, the glucose can't get in
Right.
and it just builds up in the bloodstream.
Okay, and I know there's different types of diabetes, right?
Right. You've got type 1 and type 2, the most common ones.
Okay.
Type 1, it usually pops up during childhood or the young adult years.
Okay.
And with type 1, the pancreas just doesn't produce enough insulin.
At all. Yeah, so folks with type 1, they're insulin dependent, meaning they need to take insulin injections regularly.
Got it.
Then you have type 2.
Yeah.
It's way more common, around 95% of cases.
Okay.
And it usually develops later in life in adults.
Mm-hmm.
With type 2, the pancreas might still be making insulin, sometimes even too much.
Interesting.
But the body cells, they've become resistant.
Right.
They're like, nah, we don't need that glucose.
Yeah.
The good news is type 2 can often be managed without insulin.
Really?
Yeah, through, medication, changes to your diet, and exercise.
Okay, that's good news. So how would someone know they might have diabetes? What are some of the signs to look out for?
There are some pretty common symptoms.
Okay.
One of the big ones is being super thirsty all the time
Okay.
and having to pee frequently.
Mm-hmm.
It's because your body's trying to flush out all that extra glucose.
I see.
And that can lead to dehydration, which can make you feel dizzy or give you headaches. Some people also experience blurred vision, and they might lose weight without trying, even though they're super hungry all the time.
Okay.
And even their wounds might take longer to heal.
Wow, so it can really affect you in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So let's talk about athletes now. If you're an athlete with diabetes and you're exercising, how does that play into all of this?
It definitely adds another layer of complexity,
Right.
especially when you compare type 1 and type 2.
Oh.
For athletes with type 1, exercise management is super important.
Yeah.
They need to be really diligent about monitoring their blood sugar levels.
Okay.
They got to watch the timing and dosage of their insulin.
Right.
And they need to be careful about what they eat and when.
It's like a lot of moving parts to keep track of.
It is. And it all needs to be balanced with their training schedule.
Wow, so it's like a a really personalized approach.
Absolutely, it has to be. Now, for type 2 diabetes, it can be a little bit easier to manage, especially when it comes to exercise.
Okay, that's good.
While self-monitoring is still a good idea, insulin often isn't as crucial in the moment
Yeah.
because exercise itself actually helps the body's cells become more sensitive to insulin.
Oh, okay.
So it kind of helps things along naturally.
So I imagine checking your blood sugar before working out is really key then, right? For
Absolutely.
both types.
Yeah, it's a must. Our sources actually have like this handy table
Okay.
outlining these guidelines for different blood glucose levels.
Okay, so give us an example.
All right, so let's say your glucose is below 100 milligdl.
Okay.
That's pretty low. You'd want to have a snack with about 15 to 40 grams of carbs before you start exercising.
Okay.
Something like a banana and a few crackers,
Go.
just to make sure you have enough fuel and you don't bottom out.
Right. You don't want to get that low blood sugar.
Exactly. Now, if your levels are between 100 and 250, you're generally good to go.
All right.
But if it's way up there, like above 250, and you also have ketones present.
Okay. And remind me, what are ketones again?
Ketones, they're like, they're a byproduct of fat breakdown.
Yes.
When your body can't access glucose for energy, it starts burning fat instead.
Right. So it's like a backup fuel system.
Exactly.
Nice.
It's normal, if you're starving or something.
Yeah.
But for someone with diabetes, especially type 1, exercising with high ketones can be risky.
Okay. So that's a situation where you'd want to kind of hold back on the exercise.
Absolutely. You'd want to maybe adjust your insulin or medication.
Right.
And definitely recheck your levels before doing anything strenuous.
Right. Okay. And you mentioned those signs of low and high blood sugar.
Right.
Hypoglycemia and hyperglycemia.
Yeah.
What are some things to watch out for?
Okay, so for hypoglycemia, low blood sugar, you might notice things like sweating,
Okay.
a racing heart, feeling really hungry, shaky, confused, and maybe even tired.
Wow. So a lot of different things.
Yeah, it can vary. Now, hyperglycemia, high blood sugar, that often shows up as feeling nervous or restless,
Oh.
being really thirsty, tired, having blurred vision, and sometimes even muscle cramps.
Okay.
So it's important for athletes with diabetes and everyone around them to
Yeah.
be able to recognize these signs.
Absolutely. So they can kind of address the situation right away.
Right.
Okay. So if you're an athlete with diabetes, what are some general nutrition recommendations to keep in mind?
The basics still apply, like following those MyPlate guidelines,
Mm-hmm.
getting a good balance of fruits, veggies, whole grains, lean protein, and dairy.
Right.
But it's also important to be consistent with your eating pattern.
Okay.
Try to eat around the same time each day
Yeah.
and aim for similar amounts and types of carbs at each meal and snack.
Okay. So consistency is key.
It really is. And if you're using insulin, you need to figure out how the timing of your meals, your carb intake, and your insulin dose all work together,
Okay.
especially when you're factoring in exercise.
So it's really about finding that personalized balance.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. What about when you're training for a long time or during a competition? Does anything change?
Oh, yeah. For those longer bites of exercise, you need to make sure you're getting enough carbs both during and after.
Okay.
For athletes with type 1 diabetes, a good rule of thumb is to have 15 to 30 grams of carbs every 30 to 60 minutes.
Okay.
Think about it like 8 ounces of a sports drink.
Yeah.
The kind that has about 6-8% carbs,
Okay.
or a sports gel, a fig bar, or even just some juice diluted with water,
Oh, okay.
like a 1-to-1 mix.
So pretty easy things to kind of grab and go.
Right, exactly.
Okay. So we've talked about some of the potential emergencies.
Yeah.
What are some ways to prevent those diabetic emergencies during exercise?
I mean, the biggest thing is to stay on top of monitoring.
Okay.
Check your blood glucose regularly.
Right.
Know those signs and symptoms of both low and high blood sugar.
Right.
And be prepared. Have your insulin and syringes handy if you need them. And keep a fast-acting source of glucose nearby.
Okay. Like what?
Glucose tablets, juice, or even regular soda can work in a pinch.
Okay. Good to know.
And honestly, one of the most important things is to educate the people around you.
Oh.
Coaches, parents, teammates, anyone who might be there.
Yeah.
Make sure they know how to recognize those signs and symptoms too.
Right. So they can kind of help out if needed.
Exactly. It could be a real lifesaver.
Wow. Okay. So much great advice there for athletes managing diabetes. Let's switch gears now and talk about pregnant athletes.
Oh, another fascinating group.
Right. So much is changing in their bodies.
Absolutely.
So what are some of the top nutritional considerations for them?
Well, pregnancy is like a whole other level,
Right.
So many demands on the body.
Yeah.
So you've got to think about things like the athlete's competition schedule,
Okay.
the intensity and volume of their training,
Yeah.
and of course what their doctor recommends.
Right, that's key.
And then on top of that, you've got specific dietary recommendations that need to be addressed.
Okay, so what are some of the main dietary concerns for pregnant athletes?
Well, there's a bunch,
Yeah.
but the big ones are increased calorie needs, protein needs, B vitamins, especially folate,
Okay.
vitamin C, vitamin A, magnesium, and iron.
Wow. Okay. A lot to keep track of.
It is.
So how much more do their calorie needs actually increase?
On average, a pregnant athlete needs about 300 extra calories a day.
Okay.
But that can change depending on how intense their training is
Right.
and what stage of pregnancy they're in.
Makes sense.
It becomes even more important in the second and third trimesters.
Okay.
And, it's also a good idea to keep an eye on weight gain.
Okay.
The general recommendation is about 25 to 35 pounds over the entire pregnancy.
Okay, and what about protein?
Oh, protein is important for everyone.
Right.
But yeah, pregnant athletes need a little bit more than usual.
Okay, how much more?
About 20 to 25 extra grams a day. So that's like adding 3 cups of skim milk to your diet.
Okay.
Or a 3-ounce serving of lean protein, like chicken breast.
Okay.
Or about a cup and a half of cooked lentils.
Got it.
Or 3 ounces of almonds.
So different options.
Yeah, lots of choices. And the good thing is, if they're meeting their calorie needs with nutritious foods, they're probably getting enough protein anyway.
Oh, that's good. So you mentioned B vitamins, especially folate. Why is folate so important during pregnancy?
B vitamins are essential for energy production
Okay.
and for building new tissues.
Yeah.
But folate, this one's super crucial for DNA synthesis, making red blood cells, and for the baby's nervous system to develop properly.
So it's not just for the mom, it's for the baby too.
Right.
Okay.
And pregnant women need about 600 micrograms of folate a day.
Okay. And then vitamin C, we often think of that as being good for our immune system.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
What about during pregnancy?
Well, it helps with collagen formation,
Okay.
hormone synthesis, immune function, of course.
Right.
And it even helps the body absorb iron better.
Okay, so it's like a multitasker.
It is.
So how much vitamin C should pregnant athletes aim for?
They should aim for about 80 to 85 milligrams a day.
Okay.
And, a good tip is to pair iron-rich foods with vitamin C-rich foods.
Oh, okay, that's smart.
Yeah, like have some orange juice with your iron-fortified cereal.
Got it. Okay, what about vitamin A? I know there can be some concerns about getting too much of that during pregnancy.
Yeah, that's true. Vitamin A is important for cell growth and immune function.
Okay.
And the recommended intake for pregnant women is 750 to 770 micrograms of RAE per day.
What's RAE stand for?
RAE. It stands for retinal activity equivalence.
Okay.
It's a way of measuring vitamin A from different sources.
Okay.
But the thing is, it's better to get your vitamin A from food,
Okay.
especially foods rich in beta-carotene,
Oh.
like spinach, broccoli, tomato juice, carrots,
Oh.
because your body converts beta-carotene into vitamin A.
Got it.
It's safer than taking a bunch of supplements.
Okay, that's a good distinction. What about magnesium? What does that do for pregnant athletes?
Magnesium is a busy mineral.
Why?
It's involved in muscle contraction
Okay, that's important.
and energy production.
Yeah.
Both of those are obviously key for athletes.
Mm-hmm.
Pregnant athletes need to up their magnesium intake by about 40 milligrams.
Okay.
So their daily intake should be around 350 to 360 milligrams.
Okay, and is that hard to get?
Not really. There are tons of foods that have magnesium.
Oh, okay. What are some examples?
Think whole wheat bread, tofu, yogurt, beans, nuts, some fish, and spinach.
Oh, okay.
So it's not too hard to work into your diet.
Good, good. Okay, and then lastly, we have iron, another one that's often talked about during pregnancy.
Yeah, iron's super important, especially during pregnancy.
Why is that?
It's essential for making red blood cells,
Right.
which carry oxygen to, well, everywhere in the body.
Yeah.
And that includes the baby. So pregnant athletes need to bump up their iron intake to 27 milligrams a day.
Okay, that's quite a bit higher.
It is. Good food sources are red meat, poultry, fish, legumes, and iron-fortified grains.
Okay.
But because their needs are so much higher, they might need to take iron supplements too.
Right, but always best to check with their doctor first.
Always, always.
Okay, that was a really thorough overview of the nutritional adjustments pregnant athletes need to make. Now, let's move on to child and teen athletes. What are some of the unique things we need to consider with this age group?
With young athletes, the key thing to remember is that they're still growing.
Right.
So their nutrition needs to support both their sports and their development.
Okay.
They need enough calories and nutrients to stay on track with their growth.
Okay.
Our sources talk about this idea of a growth channel.
Okay.
Like imagine their growth trajectory is like a riverbed.
Okay.
They need enough nutrition to keep flowing within that healthy path.
That's a really good way to think about it. So, are there any specific areas that we need to pay extra attention to with young athletes?
Yeah, fluid needs are huge.
Okay.
Kids and teens, they don't regulate their body temperature as well as adults,
Okay.
and they might not always realize they're thirsty.
Right.
So it's important to remind them to drink often, especially when they're exercising.
Okay.
Make water easily accessible,
Hmm.
and maybe even offer some fun flavors.
Yeah, that makes sense. What about vitamins and minerals? Are there any that are especially important?
Yeah, calcium and iron are super important during those growth spurts.
Okay.
For calcium, the recommendation for kids and teens aged 9 to 18 is 1,300 milligrams a day.
Okay.
That's essential for strong bones.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what about iron?
For iron, the recommendations change depending on age and gender.
Okay.
So teens between 9 and 13 need about 8 milligrams a day.
Okay.
Boys between 14 and 18 need 11 milligrams.
Okay.
And girls in the same age range need 15 milligrams.
Okay. And why the difference for girls?
It's to make up for the iron they lose during their periods.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. So they need a bit more.
Right.
Okay, so those are the main things for child and teen athletes. Now, what about when they go off to college? What are some of the challenges and considerations for collegiate athletes?
College is a big change for a lot of young athletes.
Right.
It's often the first time they're responsible for all their own meals.
Yeah, that's a big adjustment.
And on top of that, their training schedules might be more demanding.
Right, so their calorie needs might go up.
Exactly. And they're navigating dining halls, maybe living on a tight budget,
Yeah,
and juggling classes and social life.
so it's a lot to manage.
It is.
So what are some key nutritional recommendations for collegiate athletes?
The most important thing is to make a meal plan
Okay,
and stick to it.
right, so don't skip meals.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
And our sources really emphasize this, but they need to avoid alcohol or at least limit it as much as possible.
Okay, why is alcohol such a focus for this age group?
There are a few reasons. First off, depending on where they are, it might be illegal for them to drink
Right.
because of age restrictions.
No.
Plus, there are like obvious safety issues,
Yeah.
Impaired judgment, accidents.
Right. Not good.
And nutritionally speaking, alcohol is pretty much empty calories.
Okay, what does that mean?
It means it has calories, but it doesn't provide any nutrients.
Okay, so not helpful.
Not really, and it's a terrible source of carbs for fueling workouts.
Got it.
Plus, alcohol can actually lead to weight gain.
Really?
Yeah, it can increase body fat,
Interesting.
and it can even stimulate your appetite.
Oh, so you end up eating more.
Exactly. Our sources even have a diagram showing how alcohol gets metabolized into acetyl-CoA,
Okay.
which your body can either use for energy or store as fat.
So not ideal for athletes who are trying to stay lean and perform their best.
Not really.
Okay, and college is just a few years, right?
Yeah.
So is there anything collegiate athletes should be thinking about in terms of nutrition to prepare for life after graduation?
For sure. Once they're not training as intensely, they won't need as many calories.
Okay.
So it's important for them to learn how to adjust their diet accordingly.
Right, make healthy choices.
Yeah. Things like meal planning, cooking, grocery shopping.
Okay,
Those are all important skills they can take with them.
right.
And, they need to figure out how to manage their nutrition in their new life.
Okay, like what do you mean?
Like maybe they'll have a job that involves a lot of travel.
Right.
Or they might be going out to eat more often.
Yeah, that's common.
So they need to be able to make healthy choices in those situations.
So it's about building those lifelong healthy habits.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move on to master athletes.
Yeah.
Those who've been competing for many years. Do their nutritional needs change as they get older?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Masters athletes might need to adjust their calorie intake. As they age, they might not be as active or their metabolism might slow down.
Right.
So they might not need as many calories as they used to.
Okay.
Plus, their vitamin and mineral needs can change too.
Really?
Yeah, our sources say they might need less chromium and iron,
Okay.
but they might need more vitamin D, calcium, and magnesium.
Okay, so it's kind of a mixed bag.
It is. But, those are all important nutrients for healthy aging,
Yeah.
especially for athletes.
So vitamin D and calcium for strong bones,
Right.
and magnesium to support their muscles.
Exactly.
Okay, are there any other unique things to consider with master athletes?
Yeah, they're more likely to have chronic health conditions,
Okay.
which can affect their diet.
Right, they might have restrictions.
Right. And they need to be careful about food-drug interactions.
Oh, okay, what do you mean?
Well, some nutrients can affect how medications work,
Okay.
and some medications can affect how nutrients are absorbed.
Right, so it's important to kind of be aware of those potential interactions.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's really important. Finally, let's talk about vegetarian athletes. You know, it's clear that you can be a successful athlete on a plant-based diet.
Oh, yeah?
Our sources even mention some amazing examples.
Like Hank Aaron, the baseball legend,
Yes.
and tennis stars Venus Williams and Martina Navratilova.
Wow, all incredible athletes.
Yeah.
So what are some key things vegetarian athletes need to focus on nutritionally?
For vegetarian athletes, it all comes down to making sure they're getting enough of everything they need from plant-based sources.
Okay, which can be tricky sometimes, right?
It can be. So there are different types of vegetarian diets.
Ah.
It ranges from semi-vegetarian, where you eat some meat,
Okay.
to pesco-vegetarian, where you eat fish,
Okay.
to lacto-ovo-vegetarian, where you eat dairy and eggs.
Okay.
And then you have lacto-vegetarian, just dairy, ovo-vegetarian, just eggs.
Okay.
And then the most restrictive, vegan.
Okay, so no animal products at all.
Right.
Okay, so a lot of variation there.
Yeah. And it's important to kind of understand what each one means.
Yeah.
But one of the main things for all vegetarian athletes is to make sure they're getting enough protein.
Right, because plant-based protein sources can be a little different.
Yeah, they're not always complete proteins.
Okay, what does that mean?
Okay, so protein is made up of these building blocks called amino acids.
Okay.
And there are 9 essential amino acids that our bodies can't make on their own.
Okay, so we need to get those from food.
Right. And many plant-based protein sources, they might be low in one or more of those essential amino acids.
Oh, I see. So how do vegetarian athletes make sure they're getting all 9?
They need to complement their proteins.
Okay, what does that mean?
It means combining different plant-based protein sources throughout the day
Okay.
so that they're getting all the essential amino acids they need.
Can you give us an example?
Sure, like grains are often low in lysine,
Okay.
but they have methionine.
Okay.
And legumes, like beans and lentils, they're high in lysine, but low in methionine.
I see. So you combine them.
Exactly. If you eat both grains and legumes during the day, you'll get all the essential amino acids.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's like rice and beans,
Yes.
a classic combo.
Yeah, or peanut butter on whole wheat bread,
Oh, that's a good one.
or hummus with pita bread.
Perfect example.
Okay, so it's about being strategic.
It is.
Okay, so besides protein, are there any other vitamins or minerals that vegetarian athletes need to be mindful of?
Yeah, vitamin D and B12 can be a bit tricky.
Okay.
They're mostly found in animal products.
Right.
So vegetarian athletes, especially vegans, might need to rely on fortified foods
Okay.
like plant-based milks and cereals,
Yeah.
or they might need to take supplements.
Okay.
They should also keep an eye on their zinc, calcium, and iron intake
Go.
because the forms of